Um, it's Chris. It's July 1st, 2015, halfway through the year, and obviously, what has happened in country the past week, it has been obviously a tragedy for all Catholics, Christians, and all like believers that the Supreme Court ruled that same-sex civil marriage is a constitutional right, and states are required to license them. Now, obviously, we've got this far mostly because of the establishment Vatican II Novus Ordo hierarchy, specifically in the United States, because they are the ones who are responsible, and that's why I just published the book Counterfeit Church. I am waiting for my proof copy coming in the mail. It's been shipped, I've been told, so it will be coming, and it will be available on the global market, places like Amazon and .com and etc. etc. Now, I hate to say this, but the book does explore that the it explores that the New England area, more specifically the Archdiocese of Boston, was the beginning. They are the first ones to start all this mess, plus that led up to Massachusetts, leading up to the legalization of same-sex marriage, and it also because they were ordaining back as early as the 1940s, and supposedly Cardinal Cushing knew that they were just knowingly ordaining active homosexuals to the priesthood, simply because they could not marry another guy. And obviously, so that was their way of getting out, and obviously that did not work out for anybody. So, and it did not work out for traditionalists especially. So, but this comes to show that based on the more persecutions against Christianity throughout the world, like for the most example is Christianity is being wiped out of the Middle East, and then what's going on here in the West, and the Pope issues an encyclical on climate change, which has nothing to do with the faith. And obviously, there are certain people who think it's a mortal sin to criticize the Pope. It is not if the Pope does something which is against the church teaching. So that is a fallacy, saying that it is a mortal sin to obviously object against anything the Holy See does, or even what your bishop does. Now, speaking of bishops, obviously they're based on what's going on in knowingly, I have a few words to say, okay, about the typical Novus Ordo bishop, okay? Up here in New England, it is very scarce. Actually, let me put it this way. I'm going to say Massachusetts and northern New England in particular, which includes Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Okay, and then in the Bay State, I know for the Bay State for sure is a fact. The others I'm not 100% sure, but I would assume the same thing. Okay, so if I'm wrong, just leave in the comment box below and respond there. But anyway, what has, how should I say this? Okay, there has been no pontifical high mass said in Massachusetts since at least 1970. Could be earlier. Obviously, I'm not old enough. I wasn't alive, but there. But for the basic part, since there's been no pontifical high mass in the Tridentine form, which that is what it has to be in the. I mean, there's in the classical Roman Rite. The Novus Ordo technically does not have pontifical masses, so there hasn't been one since Cardinal Cushing passed away in 1970. Now, and the way things are going, and to the quality of bishops we've got in New England, okay, there isn't going to be one from a resident bishop unless a traditionalist is appointed. Now, a traditionalist will not, most likely will not be appointed under Francis. We know that, okay? Because look at some of his key appointments. They're all bad, okay? They're terrible. Like Supich in Chicago, okay? He shouldn't. There's a faithful auxiliary bishop there who should have been the Archbishop, but I'm not going to mention his name, but he was passed on, okay? He was passed on because he was a traditionalist bishop, so he was passed. That would have been a natural fit, but the Pope went otherwise, and with the gay-friendly one and Supich, and he defends, well, the Supreme Court ruling is not going to affect what the Church says, but we have to respect the rights of others. Well, Catholic cannot support that position. Now, but then we have Bravo Dolan. Okay, he was obviously appointed by Benedict to go to New York, but still, he's been a dud. And obviously, up in New England, obviously the Franciscan friar cardinal, okay, forget it, okay, not acting like a real Franciscan at all, and not even acting like doesn't even dress like a bishop most of the time outside of the liturgy, and then the vestments are perfidious, okay, so I'm not even going to discuss that. So, and also more importantly, because there are no pontifical high masses, there have been no ordinations in the traditional form, Roman form of the Church, and confirmation is at best scarce. Okay, so most of the supposedly 2 2, maybe 3 million Catholics who live in Massachusetts most likely cannot, except for a few exceptions, okay, once in a while, maybe a special thing, okay, that not everyone has easy access to the sacraments and the valid sacraments as well. So, and obviously, where I live currently, I have to go out of town to even fulfill my Sunday obligations. So that tells you how bad things are, despite the closures, and even plenty of places that claim to be Roman Catholic. They're anything but. So, obviously, and then with Pope Francis coming to the United States in September and addressing Congress and the UN, that's going to be a three-ring circus right off the bat. If I think the Holy Father should just stay home and don't even bother coming to the U.S. unless you are going to excommunicate every person who violates this book here, the Code of Canon Law, okay? And especially as far as Holy Communion is concerned, Canon 915, public sinners cannot go to communion, and all that other stuff. So unless the bishops are going to obey this, don't even bother, okay? Holy Father, don't even bother coming to the United States unless you're going to throw people out and throw this book at them, okay? Don't even bother, okay? Because everybody's going to go, yay! Yay! It's not gonna sit. Obviously, it's not gonna sit well for me. I might watch the speech. It most likely will be the congressional speech, but I might not. I don't know, but it's probably nothing orthodox to say about it, as far as the theology and church discipline is concerned. But this brings me to another thing, another common issue, and which is referenced in canon law, and this is how it is very bold, okay, very bold in this book, a very bold law here, okay, which pertained to an event which happened back in Lent of this year in Brazil, okay. Whether you agree with it or not, okay, obviously Bishop Williamson, formerly of the SSPX, he was expelled for disobedience and anti-Semitism in 2012, and on March 19th, this past St. Joseph's feast day, spouse of the Virgin Mary Day, it's the official name, he consecrated a bishop. He had it secretly planned and secretly done at a monastery in Brazil, just to preserve the quote-unquote resistance, which are a lot of priests who think that the SSPX is selling the faith out to the Novus Ordo, which is not. That is obviously false. But I personally do not believe this consecration will make any effect, because he chose somebody only 2 years younger than he is. But Williamson is 75. So, but I don't think it'll make an immediate impact, because anything anybody could check out any time. So I mean, I don't think so. I think that was a stupid choice of somebody really really old to do it, and I understand why it happened. And in the same way, Archbishop Lefebvre consecrated him and 3 other bishops who are still in the SSPX, because it was to save the Catholic priesthood and to save the traditional Mass and to save the sacraments and to save the faith, pretty much. That's why he did it. That's why Archbishop Lefebvre did it, because if it weren't for him, regardless of where you go to Mass, I don't go to an SSPX chapel, but 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 most traditionalists should owe their gratitude wherever you go to Mass, okay, to him, because he's the first bishop, actually, high-ranking bishop, to actually intervene, actually ordain priests, and actually at the last, he waited to the last, not so much, pretty much the last possible minute to consecrate bishops. So and then there is the part, well, saying, well, you're automatically excommunicated if you consecrate a bishop. Well, think again. This, according to the 1983 Code of Canon Law, which was promulgated by Pope John Paul II, okay, I'm going to read this right here. Canon 1013. Here it is. It says, no bishop is permitted to consecrate anyone a bishop unless it is first evident that there is a pontifical mandate. And the word pontifical, okay, is in a lowercase p. It's a lowercase p. And then the original Latin says, nulli episcopal licet quoni consecrare in episcopum nisi prius constate de pontifical mandatio. And then the p in that one, pontificio, lowercase p. So there's the thing here. The lowercase letter means pontifical. It does not say papal, and it does not have a capital letter. So this is very easily interpretive why the Archbishop was able to consecrate bishops. Because when a bishop says Mass, it is a pontifical Mass, whether high or low, okay? And only the bishop can say the pontifical Mass, okay? It's not any different from the Mass a priest says, except there are some ceremonial differences, but otherwise the Mass texts are the same for the most part. But but pontifical with a lowercase p means that a bishop, a regular bishop of pretty much any rank, can mandate that a bishop be consecrated, okay? And then and also the other consideration, excuse me, the other consideration is that when the Archbishop consecrated the bishops, he just did them for the sacramental life of the church, and he did not assign them titles. That would be schismatic. But just the consecration, the ceremony alone, is valid, and it is licit according to Canon 1013, based on one word and one grammatical thing. Now, people will probably laugh at me and all this, but no, it's clear. It's very clear right here, okay, that All they need is a pontifical. If a bishop were required, it would say, if the Pope's approval would be explicitly needed, it would say papal. Okay, it would say papal, but it says pontifical. Papal's the Pope, pontifical is the bishop. Now, there are agencies in the Holy See that refer to as pontifical. That is, obviously with an uppercase P. That's just the name. That's just their names, but in reality, according to the 1983 Code, Canon 1013, the lowercase word pontifical means a bishop, okay? And then the Pope is Pontificus Maximus, Supreme Pontiff. So that's pretty much, and then a pontiff is actually a derivative from Latin for high priest, which is the high priest of the diocese, which is the bishop, okay? Now based on that canon, okay, any bishop can consecrate any bishop can actually consecrate a bishop, okay? But obviously most Novus Ordo, or obviously the Novus Ordo crew will not do it because they'll think it's disobedience. And if they when they do get a mandate to consecrate, it's done in the Novus Ordo form, which obviously there are some doubts about the new sacraments, but I'm not going to get into that too much. But in terms of the other accusation that the SSPX cannot validly marry people, or cannot validly absolve, their priest cannot validly absolve one's sins in sacramental confession. Well, they can. Obviously they can, because in most cases they actually do. They're only there for supplied jurisdiction. So actually supplied jurisdiction goes beyond the SSP. It applies to pretty much any priest who's not your parish priest, or any bishop who's not your local ordinary, your bishop, okay? So, and then let me read the last canon, 1752, in the 1983 Code. It says, in cases of transfer, the prescriptions of Canon 747 are to be applied with due regard for canonical equity, and having before one's eyes the salvation of souls, which is always the supreme law of the Church. Okay, so what that means simply is that if you're on the highway and you crash into a guide rail and you're almost ready to die, and the state trooper finds the metal medallion or card that says you're Catholic, and police call a priest, okay, and they call an SSPX priest, or any priest, okay, he can validly give you extreme unction, and once you die, hopefully you will go to heaven. But obviously, let's hope nobody gets in any car crashes, okay? But that's how. But you do not need jurisdiction to give extreme unction out at all, even if you are a suspended, or you have been a priest who has been placed on leave due to improper behavior. against children. Okay, so you can even do it. It'd be sound freaky, but that's what the law says. Now, in terms of marriages, okay, which is going to pertain to me once I find my sweetheart, and once I find her, we date for probably a year, we court and date for a year, we get engaged. Now here's the this applies to pretty much any couple, okay? Obviously I go to a diocesan I go to a mass currently said by a diocesan priest, okay? I'm lucky. Who is right on the ball. Most are not, okay? As far as diocesan priests, even the ones who say the TLM, they're only doing it for aesthetics, not for substance, okay? So what will happen is that depending on where she goes to mass regularly, okay, where she regularly goes to mass, um, if she goes to mass in a catacomb, okay, or at a monastery chapel, or at a college chapel that does not have parochial status, okay. Obviously, you know what I mean. A college like a Newman Center, okay. And, I'm assuming that I'm in this case hypothetically assuming that they offer a traditional mass, and then she's been going to it, okay. Canonically, according to the law, I we we even though there is this tradition about the bride's parish thing, a Newman Center typically is not a parish, okay? And a parish is normally where you live. And that also goes to the thing where if you live, your neighborhood parish, okay, we'll put it this way, if your neighborhood parish does not offer the TLM, obviously don't go. You're not going to. Traditionalists will not go there. I would not go there, okay? I recommend you don't go there, but then you're justifiably can go to the next closest one, however millions of miles away it is. Now, in terms of as marriage is concerned, plus you got to consider the legal requirements. Some states require residency, some don't. So that taken into consideration too. But as far as live going to mass at in a canonically place that's not a parochial church or a cathedral church, okay, you legally, canonically, according to the law, marriages cannot be performed there. But if now here's the sticky part. If if one of the parties, okay, attends mass at an SSPX chapel, okay, and then the other attends uh, a fraternity of St. Peter or another canonically approved or more or a diocesan mass that they still treat it as an indult, which is really an insult. And you want to get married you want to have an 100% Orthodox marriage preparation. I advocate that for everybody. But if for some reason you want to marry in the actual bigger, more seating capacity, have a big wedding, blah, 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 and want to invite more people, so you want to marry in the bigger venue between the two, which it would be most likely the parish church, okay? And you got to be careful sometimes, because if the if the priest there is sending you to is instructing you wrong, or sending you to an unorthodox marriage prep course, a pre-cana course, then it's a disservice to you and a disservice to the church. And I would, and if that is an absolute requirement to get married in that parish church of it, and you still fall for it, then God help you, because in this particular case, it would be permissible to go to the SSPX priest and have him marry you there with 100% Catholic orthodoxy and 100% towards marriage and family. At least you will get the faith there, even if it might not be popular. You might be called a schismatic, but unfortunately in these days there is a not really so hidden agenda that it's going to get worse. So you can go there in many cases, yes, and in many cases that's the only legitimate option for a Latin Mass in many areas, because there is no diocesan Mass. And oftentimes there might be a diocesan Mass, but it is not said in good faith. So you have to go where the Mass is said in good faith. Otherwise, you're not going to have the faith passed on to you, and that also, and also, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it is quite possible that the few traditional Catholic bishops left in the world, obviously the three SSPX one, Bishop Fellay, Bishop Tissier de Mallory, and Bishop de Galarreta, okay, in the SSPX, along with Cardinal Burke, Bishop Athanasius Schneider, and probably a few other good ones that we've never heard because they're in other countries, okay, that we have no clue who they are, okay, other than with some exceptions, also like Archbishop Cordileone in San Francisco. I forgot to mention him. He's a very good one. But otherwise, there is if there are too many more bad appointments by Francis, or even Francis's successor, that depends too. Okay, we don't know how long Francis is going to live, and we don't know who is actually going to, what the College of Cardinals will look like when he passes on, and who's there to pick. Okay, so, but obviously if keeps it up, it doesn't look good. So what will have to happen is that it is quite possible that all these bishops that I mentioned are going to have to join together in probably maybe groups of two. They're going to have to, I'm afraid, they're going to have to consecrate bishops to preserve the Catholic faith. If they do it, okay. If we're called schismatics because of it, if the Holy See kicks our rear ends because of it, well, look, we have the faith. Our Lady of Fatima predicted this, Our Lady of La Salette predicted this, and Our Lady of Akita predicted this, and Our Lady at Quigero, Ecuador predicted all this. So these are actually prophecies. They're not. I'm not making this stuff up. It is quite possible, obviously, other than going back to the catacombs, okay, we might have, it is quite possible, and probably maybe sooner, that these holy bishops are going to have to consecrate bishops just to save the faith and the sacramental life of the church. It's plain and simple. That's what Archbishop Lefebvre did, and then the current leadership today is going to have to, not just the SS but other bishops too. They're going to have to consecrate without a papal bull, because Rome right now is on another agenda, and until a traditional pope who will throw all these bums out and who actually says that the traditional Latin Mass, we're out of luck right now. So let's just pray the rosary, pray the Dominican 15-decade rosary every day. Pray. Thank God bless you in the nome Patri.